usually your body tells you when something is wrong, right? And even though that happens, we mostly ignore it, right? Because we have been taught to
True.
just push through, keep going. But make sure that we are really taking note of, what we're dealing with, what emotions are coming up, and actually seek out support for that. And so, just like you said earlier, we put a lot of money into business coaching and, how to help me get this contract and this and that. But if you are not well up here,
Yeah.
eventually will affect your physical health, your medical health, then, your business ultimately will suffer.
Hey, everybody, this is your girl, Hope Brown, the tax-minded bookkeeper, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Beyond the Receipts, all right? So we are the podcast for small business owners who will address everything about the money part of your business, the tax part of your business, just to make sure that all those things are in order, all right? All right, guys. So if you're listening to the sound of my voice, you have somehow made it through Q1. All right. We're in 2025. We're in Q2, and a lot of things have happened since January that I kind of want to talk about today. All right. Even though, with business owners, we're working with business owners, and I think like what I wanted to talk about today, because I'm seeing it in my own business, I'm seeing it in my client businesses, I'm seeing it, when I go out in the community and work with business owners. A lot of things have happened with the political climate. It's just a stressful time of year anyway. People are coming out of the tax season. A lot of things are happening to affect people's mental health, their mental well-being. All right. And I wanted to address that today on a podcast because I can really say with confidence that if your mind is not right, your money is definitely not going to be right. All right. So, like, what do we do about that? What do we really do about that? And we're going to talk about that today. All right. So, you guys know that if you need help with your taxes, I'm the person. If you need help with your money, organizing it, we can help you with the bookkeeping. But, and a lot of times, I'll talk to clients, and this is no slam on the clients, right? But when you talk to people about their money, they trust you and they want to talk to you about all of the things related to their money, including how they may be feeling. And whereas, like, I definitely have compassion for that. I talk to my clients. We definitely have good relationships. Some of this stuff is just kind of outside of my area of expertise. All right. So I wanted to bring today someone into the studio who's all about mental health and well-being. All right. So let me take a moment to kind of give you the bio of my guest today. Her name is Christy Venable. All right. So she is a national certified counselor and a licensed professional counselor specializing in workplace mental health and corporate wellness. Through Smile Therapy Services, which is her company, she has helped organizations from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses to create psychologically safe workplaces where both people and profits thrive. Her clinical-based approach focuses on preventative mental health solutions and builds resilience and productivity. All right. So without further ado, let me bring Christy to the stage so we can hear a little bit about her goodness and get some of her wisdom to help us out. All right. Miss Christy, welcome, welcome, welcome. How you doing?
Oh, how are you? I am grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I read that great bio, but definitely please feel free to add in anything I may have left out that you want the listeners to know about.
Yes. Well, like you said, I am Christy Venable, the CEO of Smile Therapy Services. And really our goal is to work with corporations and organizations to improve workplace culture through preventative mental health and wellness solutions, leadership development trainings, conflict resolution, mediation services. But at the core of who we are therapists. And so we do provide that one-on-one services. I specifically focus on executive wellness coaching for my entrepreneurs and for my executives because, I know it's just super important. And so I'm excited to have this conversation today because it's much needed, especially for entrepreneurs.
Well, yeah. So, and I'll ask you, so you're out there on the front lines. Like, what are you seeing now in this climate? We're in the second quarter of 2025. I know you've been out working with business owners, talking to them. What are you seeing?
People are stressed. And we're stressed about a lot of different things. unfortunately, right? So people are stressed that one, we have this new administration and, there's been all sorts of attack on small business owners, especially within the diversity, equity, and inclusion phase, right? So you have some business owners who that was their entire business.
Yeah.
And now they are faced with changing their entire model, changing the core of who they are and what they really wanted to do. So they're in that pivot stage. You have some business owners who had big federal contracts. We know that they are cutting contracts left and right, and most small businesses are being affected. And so imagine how that impacts your mental health. A lot of small businesses having to lay people off, and it's not easy, right? It's not easy having to do that. So we're super stressed, and with that, our financials may be looking funny right now because of all the changes, that we've had to make. And so, what I'm seeing is people are overwhelmed. And it's just like, what do you do right now? Right? We're trying to kind of rebuild and pivot and get ourselves together. But how do you also protect your own mental health, right? And so that's some of the things that I'm talking about just with some business owners, just making sure that, yes, we're overwhelmed, we're dealing with a lot, we're trying to manage a lot, but make sure you're still taking care of yourself.
So that's a hard balancing act sometimes, all right? And I'm seeing business owners from the financial part go through all of those different phases that you just described, okay? They're repivoting, they're refocusing, and they're pulling themselves out of, these kind of risk areas that they're in or what have turned into risk. But a lot of times, and I'll just even talk about me. We're so focused on running the business and making the next pivot that's going to go towards, financial stability and things like that. But if we take a step back and look at ourselves, can you tell me any kind of warning signs that you've seen that as an entrepreneur, a business owner, someone who has all that direct stress on them, like what are things that they would even need to notice about themselves to say, hey, maybe I need to kind of sit down and take a chill pill. That's old school language, but you know what I'm saying. What kind of signs?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to look at one, your emotions.
Mm,
How they changed, right? Do you find yourself being very emotional? So like you're crying more often than not. You also have to look at what are some of your physical symptoms that you're having. Usually when we're stressed, it comes out physical. And so are you having headaches? Are you having difficulty sleeping, right? Are you having difficulty with your appetite? Maybe no appetite because you're stressed. Or some people are stress eaters. And so that's
mm,
also something to look out for. Are you being very emotional reactive?
yeah.
Right? Based on fear, or you're just frustrated, or you're just exhausted, right? And then avoidance. Do you find yourself avoiding things? Especially, we're talking about finances. Do you find yourself avoiding looking at your finances, avoiding talking to your accountant, avoiding these things? That's also another thing that you can look out for. And then cognitive. Are you having difficulty concentrating?
Mm,
You're
yeah.
forgetful. You really can't decide on things. You're indecisive. All of those things are they're warning signs. And we need to look at those so
Hmm.
that we can see what support do we need.
I love that. I love that list. I love that list of identifying it. I mean, and I'll be transparent to say, like, okay, I'm not going to tell you how many of those things I hit, but I hit some of them. Okay.
I'm with you, right? And it's a struggle, and it's an everyday. We just have to figure it out, right? I was
Yeah.
telling someone, and then don't let you be dealing with personal things like grief.
Mhm.
Now that's a complicated compound to what you're already experiencing. So, moment by moment, sometimes that's how you have to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I receive all of that 100%, and I can tell you. So we work with a lot of mental health professional therapy practices. They're thriving right now. So what I want to say with that is that guys, all of us as business owners, I mean, we will spend money on all these different things, business coaches, business marketing. I mean, all these things focus on the business. But I challenge you, if you're hitting a lot of those areas that Chrissy just talked about for self, I challenge you to possibly reach out, and maybe it's time to get a little coaching or therapy for yourself to get through this period. Ain't nothing wrong with having somebody to talk to help you manage those emotions and things like that. Because I can tell you, as business owners, we already have to have a little extra something tough anyway to be business owners as entrepreneurs. So we're used to taking that pressure. We're used to taking those hits, and we push through it. We push through it. But, these are kind of different times, okay? So we want to give ourselves grace and really step back again, if you're going through those kind of things or feeling those kind of things in your business, if you're not right, nobody's going to be right. The money's not going to be right. The financial's not going to be right. Staff is not going to be right. Services, I mean, all it's going to be like a eventual domino effect. So definitely, I love the idea of identifying those things and possibly taking a step back and saying, okay, let me get somebody to talk to help manage those emotions and feelings and things like that. Um, do you have any other feedback on, like, okay, let's just say as a business owner, I did identify with a couple of things on that list of signs. Like, what would be something, any kind of techniques, or, even if it was like one that you could share? I mean, I said get therapy. Yeah, I mean, that's just me. But anything else individuals can do on their own to deal with that you would suggest, Christy?
Yeah, I mean, looking at different coping strategies, mindfulness, meditation is one I would say you
Mm,
definitely need to do, right? We need to be doing that every day because what it does is actually centers our nervous system. And so it helps us when we're so overwhelmed or we're, maybe having anxiety. It helps the core to actually center and calm us some. And so you should be incorporating that every day, adding some mindfulness and then making sure you're actually resting.
mm. How do
We
we do that?
How do we do that, right? We have a very difficult time with just being
Mm,
because we have been conditioned to do. And so it's a mindset shift. And we have to make sure that we understand that rest is not a luxury, it's a requirement,
mhm.
right? Like it's required for us, for our bodies to actually rest so that we can continue to do all of the things that we want to do. And so, and then rest without guilt, right? As business owners, sometimes when we're just not doing anything, we
Yeah,
feel guilty because we feel like there's so much to do that we should be doing something.
24/7, working it. I mean, you don't have to tell me, I just came off the tax season, and it's like
Exactly. So
24/7.
and
Ugh.
that's something that we have to make sure that we are giving ourselves not even grace. It's something that you owe yourself. You need to rest. It's like not even an option, right? For us to just be able to function. And so I think that's something that, we can do, just something very tangible. And then journaling.
Mm,
Journaling is another coping strategy. If you're managing a lot of anxiety, journaling really helps you, right? You can journal about different things. You can have a gratitude journal, you can have a prayer journal, you can even have an anxiety journal where you're actually identifying kind of what's bringing up your anxiety in the moment. You can also have when you're trying to restructure your mindset, if you have negative thoughts a lot, then you can have a journal where when you remember or you see that you're having a negative thought, you write that down and then you actually change that into something positive. So you're revamping your thoughts. So journaling is another just kind of easy thing that we can implement immediately. So those would be kind of my top three.
I
Of
love
course,
that.
go to therapy, but
Well, but that too. So I love those stress management techniques, and that's for the business owner level. Well, what if you have a staff that's also, I'm not in the W-2 world anymore, but I have been that employee and I have heard different things that's happening, in my work environment at the time, and it affected me. Would those same tips kind of go for an employee also, or someone working for me if I'm trying to help them kind of watch out for things too, or like, one or two suggestions on, like, the employee level?
Yeah, I mean, they can do the same thing, but I think if you're an employer and, you're a small business owner and you have employees, then you should be actually putting in some preventative measures for them, right? So some things
Mm,
that we do for our clients, including small business owners, is we do wellness workshops, right? So that's where we're actually going in, we're talking about a topic, we're doing some psychoeducation, we're having some discussions. Another thing we do are called therapeutic safe space sessions, where we are really having a deep down dive into a conversation around how are they managing, how are your staff managing with everything that they have going on. Also thinking about wellness retreats, something else that we do. Well,
yeah.
when is the last time you had a retreat for your staff but you really just focused on your staff
Mm,
well-being and not all just spoke about the next thing that we have to get done, but
yeah.
actually saying, you know what, we're going to focus on us. Let me do a wellness retreat for us. So those are some of the things that employers can do and, they can have inside of the year, right? We really encourage employers to not just do a one and done because people deal with their mental health every day. And so,
Yeah.
how are we being proactive with giving them strategies, giving them tools for all the, different things they may be managing or something that may come up? So, how do we manage that? Right.
Love
So,
that.
that's important.
Yeah, because I can tell you as an employer, I have people who are working with me, they're on my team, they're supporting me. The tax money bookkeeper could not be doing the things that we're doing without the team. All right. So definitely I want to make sure that my people are all right. And I'm doing little things to check on them as well too, because they're watching the news just like I'm watching the news. They're seeing all these different things like I'm seeing. So I love your idea of doing like the wellness check-ins with them, the retreats and things as well. I just wanted to include something for them because sometimes, again, as an employer, we're so up here, we got to remember really the bigger picture of everybody that we really need to be in a good mindset in order to help us produce whatever product and service on a quality level that we're doing. So I love those ideas too. I guess as we're closing out, I want to give you an opportunity to number one, any last tips or advice or information that you would want to share with our listeners that they should be considering. And then definitely, if you can tell us how to get in contact with you, Christy, anyone listening who may want to reach out, that would be great.
Yeah, I would say just really watch your body, be in tune with yourself because usually your body tells you when something is wrong, right? And even though that happens, we mostly ignore it, right? Because we have been taught to
True.
just push through, keep going. But make sure that we are really taking note of, what we're dealing with, what emotions are coming up, and actually seek out support for that. And so, just like you said earlier, we put a lot of money into business coaching and, how to help me get this contract and this and that. But if you are not well up here,
Yeah.
eventually will affect your physical health, your medical health, then, your business ultimately will suffer.
Yeah.
So
Mm,
how do we make sure that we're prioritizing self?
yeah.
I think that's for me the most important. And so I do have a self-care workbook. So I'll make sure to give you that link so that they can get that. But the refreshing smile is a transformative self-care workbook. And it really helps you to go through the 8 dimensions of self-care. So most of the time when we hear self-care, we just think, oh, let me go exercise or let me eat right or let me go get a massage. But
Mhm.
self-care is so much more. Right, it's so much more. So it educates you on the 8 dimensions of self-care. It actually allows you to assess where you are with
Yeah.
those dimensions and help you to create a self-care plan for each dimension. So that could be, something that people can get to help them. They can also join our Facebook group.
Mhm.
We actually going to have our mental health app coming out soon. And so I'm going to have something that's specifically for entrepreneurs, like a wellness coaching program. So definitely stay on in tune for that because I think we need something totally specific because of the specific challenges that we have. So I'm creating a wellness coaching community just for entrepreneurs. So definitely stay tuned for that. That's coming down the line. But my mental health and wellness app will
Mhm.
be available for corporations, small business owners want to get for their staff,
Mhm.
but also individuals, even if they just want to get some extra support, we'll have some miniature on demand workshops on there. We'll have
Yeah.
some downloadable resources. We'll have a community where we can really be their accountability partner. So I'm super excited about that and what we're creating. But people can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really big on LinkedIn, always posting.
Out
Um,
there.
I do
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Thank
lives,
you. Mhm.
just to support the community, and that's my goal for the LinkedIn Live. They can follow us on Instagram, Smile Therapy LLC. That's what we're on Instagram. But send me a message, right? If you know you need some wellness coaching, right? What does that look like? Like really helping you with that self-care, but also that resiliency part. How do we create a resiliency plan so that you can be the best CEO? How do we structure your time? How do we make sure you're structuring your days? How do we make sure that you can commit to your self-care plan that
Mm,
you create?
mm.
All of those things are within my wellness coaching program. So I'm definitely taking individuals for that, some one-on-one, or so they can definitely reach out to me for that as well.
I love that. I love it. All right, Christy. I appreciate it because again, when we're getting into these entrepreneur lives, I mean, I got like 2 business degrees, okay? But nothing prepared me for the psychological,
Nothing.
you know, literally, sprint that I have been doing since being a business owner. So we appreciate you. We definitely do.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Thank
Christy.
you.
Well, all right. Thanks for joining us. And I will definitely see you on LinkedIn. And you know what? Thank you too for all of the quality content that you put out on LinkedIn. I love these sessions. We appreciate it. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys. So we just want to wrap everything up on this episode. So again, I know we normally come out with the financial part, for you guys, the tax part. But again, I just want to reemphasize if our minds and bodies aren't well, we're not going to be able to run our businesses effectively. And if we cannot run our businesses effectively, that is 100% going to affect your bottom line from a cash flow perspective. So that's just bringing it full circle for you 100%. All right. So I hope that some of these things that Christy put out there, as far as just strategies that we could be working with as business owners to help manage that stress, I hope that they have been helpful. And I will definitely make sure that all of her links are in the show notes. You know that we have been presenting this information for educational purposes, but definitely it's nothing like reaching out and working with a professional like Christy or another therapist or whoever you need to help you get through this journey that we call entrepreneurship. All right. So this is Hope Brown signing off, the Tax Minded Bookkeeper. And I want to thank you guys for joining us today. And just remember until we meet again to continue to think beyond the receipts in your business. All right. Thank you. Peace. So, I hope this message resonated with you on some level as an entrepreneur, whether you're just getting started or maybe you've been in the game for a while. Definitely don't forget to rate and review the podcast. And of course, you're welcome to connect with us on social media at the Tax Minded Bookkeeper and share your thoughts, comments on the episode. So that's it for now. And until we meet again, you got this entrepreneur thing. And don't forget to operate your business beyond the receipts.